Hello everybody, welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We do have a good one for you. On the show, we're going to have a lot of topics to talk about. And we are starting with this. Some breaking news just in. A federal judge has halted the enforcement of the Texas abortion law. We're going to go through that, give you everything you need to know. And of course, a lot of that's going to be decided in the future by courts higher than that one. The Senate is nearing an agreement on the debt ceiling crisis, at least to stave it off until December after a rare cave-in from Mitch McConnell earlier today. We'll theorize a little bit on that. Sanders and Joe Manchin getting into a bit of a war of words about entitlement societies and what exactly that means. So just absolute unmitigated temerity of someone like Joe Manchin, who has pretty much lived off of government subsidies his whole life and been very rich from tailing the government towards his financial interest. Talking about entitlement society, definitely very rich there. Also, Stephen Donzinger today imprisoned by the 1%'s favorite judge. Not good at all. And I'm continuing the trend here on the show where the last few episodes I've kind of picked a New York Times opinion piece at random. Kind of go through it whether I agree or not. I'll let you know. And the title for this one is Stop Bashing Other Parents for Their Vaccine Choices in Front of Your Kids. A big cultural issue at the moment. And that's coming up. Alright, let's go to this one here in the New York Times. So starting in the Justice Department, a federal judge on Wednesday has granted the Justice Department's request to halt enforcement of the recently passed Texas law that bans nearly all abortions in the state, ruling that the law should be put on hold as legal battle over the statute makes its way through the federal courts. So that's pretty much all that law is, not really taking a position on the law's kind of constitutionality either way. That's going to go make its way up through the courts and definitely to the Supreme Court, pretty much in all likelihood, or well, I don't know about definitely, but we'll see. Of course, they have to agree to pick it up, and they've already done a lot of stuff on abortion. So in his 113-page ruling, Judge Robert L. Pittman, a federal district court judge in Austin, sided with the Biden administration, which had sued to hold a law that changed the landscape on the abortion fight further, and further fueled the national debate about whether abortion will continue to remain legal. His decision to pause the enforcement of the law could have an immediate effect on women in Texas who have scrambled to find healthcare providers in other parts of the country who perform abortions. Really not a fun time to be someone who's in Texas right now, in Georgia. I believe that's where that last law was passed. And it's really, really, I forget What was the name that passed in the beginning of September? I forget what state it was that passed the incredibly restrictive abortion law, but actually I think it was Texas. Last month the Justice Department sued Texas over its abortion law, which bans the procedure once cardiac activity can be detected in the embryo, usually after about 6 weeks of pregnancy. Healthcare experts say that the women may not know they're pregnant during this time, and the law makes no exception for pregnancies that are a result of rape or incest. Even if I kind of pretty much filed an emergency motion requesting an order that would prevent Texas from enforcing the Senate Bill 8 while the lawsuit moves through the court. So pretty much taking a temporary hold on it. That's the best they can do for now. Obviously, that's going to go to the Supreme Court. Declined last month to block the Texas law in a 5-4 decision, though it did not rule on whether the law and its unorthodox enforcement mechanism are constitutional, and indicated it could still take up this question. So that was the bill that they tried to rule against in the beginning of the month. They're probably going to see it back there in a bit with this kind of crazy enforcement mechanism, which is pretty much if you see someone trying to have an abortion, you can report them to God knows where, and you could get a $10,000 bounty. So it's really like talk about some sort of like real Handmaid's Tale vibes of some sort of dystopian anti-woman society or something like that. that is definitely what I'm seeing right here. Like I don't know how to put any other type of spin on it. And it's going to be very interesting to see like how the Supreme Court does on this. And the question is, we've heard from so many times, John Roberts doesn't want to make noise on the big cultural issues. Well, it's going to be a real big test for all the people who have been, I think I know which way it's going to probably swing. For all the people who have been trying to make us believe that we shouldn't change the Supreme Court, we shouldn't reform the Supreme Court at all, because John Roberts he's really a moderate, and he's got the thing in good hands, even if it is such a big what's it 6-3 proportion right now, could be 7-2 soon if Stephen Breyer keeps acting up. But anyway, not a good situation. Let's move on now to our next story. In Washington, Senate Democrats and Republicans neared an agreement on Wednesday to temporarily pull the nation from the brink of a debt default, working to punt their showdown on raising the federal borrowing limit till December, after Republicans spat out of pressure to stave off immediate fiscal calamity. For those of you who don't know, the debt ceiling is pretty much just like a ceiling of how much debt we can have, and it is really an arbitrary number. It's like it can be moved easily. It's just a law that we impose on ourselves. For the theater and image of fiscal responsibility. It can be pretty easily changed with if you have the Senate support to any number. It could just be, a gazillion dollars, and you wouldn't have to worry about it again. That's what some people have suggested, but is, especially for the Republicans, a very, very effective political tool that would be, that is going to be incredibly, incredibly effective in terms of extracting sessions, and especially, in the past with the, the era of fiscal responsibility overall, not spending, not bankrupting our future for our kids and grandkids or whatever, bull crap Ronald Reagan might have said. It is clear, I think, now that we are definitely seeing a, change, definitely a change of parties, a real irritation among the Democratic side here. But the interesting, Mitch McConnell previously blocked this, has not, this is the notable thing, he's done this, he's blocked it in the past, because if you do block, and the government does run out of money, it is seriously, 6 million jobs gone at, in the instant. The unemployment rate is going to go up. It's going to be a really, really bad situation, and just create a lot of economic instability. And obviously the Republican gamble is that Biden would be blamed for that, and they would be, insulated, which is an incredibly sick thing to do. But, playing with the economy for something like that could very easily backfire, by the way. But, to be fair, Biden could obviously do the filibuster, which he did say, to his credit, he's considering doing. But, anyway, the real thing here is McConnell, he didn't even demand any policy this time. He didn't even try to get a change. He didn't try to, do anything that may want to, see him be put in the right direction. He was just like, you know what? No, I don't want to do anything. And until pretty much what happened today was pretty much caved. So in the New York Times here, Senate Democrats and Republicans neared an agreement on Wednesday to temporarily pull this nation out of fiscal calamity with the threat of a default as little as 12 days off. Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky and the minority leader made a tactical retreat and announced that Republicans would allow Democrats to vote on a short-term extension. He did not, however, lift his blockade of a longer-term increase in the debt cap, demanding a new Democrat to eventually use a complicated and time-consuming budget process on the reconciliation bill to lift it into next year and beyond. What they should do is use the filibuster. That is for sure. But the question is, will they? That's something that only time will tell. Democrats declared the offer at least a temporary victory, even as they said they would never capitulate to McConnell's longer-term demand. Senators met into the evening to iron out the details, and Democrats said they would move forward with the vote as early as Wednesday, then quickly pivot to negotiating a multi-trillion-dollar measure to address climate change, expand Social Security, the social safety net, and raise taxes on the wealthy and corporations. So as Bernie Sanders said, around here, 2 months is a lifetime. And he hailed McConnell's offer as very good news because, the thing is with Bernie, he's not by any means, he's not a political actor. He wants to see, the economy stay stable and stay normal. And, it's definitely something that, it's a victory for Democrats, I guess. What is McConnell giving up here? Like, not tanking the economy just to watch it burn for, like, the pleasure, which, very easily could backfire on him. I don't know how you can say, we beat Mitch McConnell, we're like, incredible, we got his number now. I definitely don't think you can say that. But it is clear the Democrats still have a lot of work to do. There would be a global economic collapse if, in fact, the wealthiest nation on the earth did not pay its debts. We're going to pay our debts, and we have 2 months to figure it out. For all the self-congratulations, the agreement, if nailed down, resolved little beyond the immediate timetable. It would set up yet another consequential deadline for December when Congress is already facing a hard date by which it must fund the Democrats also hope to complete their push to enact the President Biden's ambitious agenda before then. We are willing to take this offer in order to stave off fiscal ruin, said Christopher Murphy of Connecticut. But we are all beside ourselves that the only thing Republicans are willing to do is prevent disaster for 3 months and push back in the right position. Like, literally, this is what it is here. Like, this is the best compromise that you can probably get out of the Republicans. Like, oh yeah, we'll push off complete fiscal collapse, 6 million jobs lost until December. We can give it till then to figure it out. So they did so after weeks of intransigence on the debt ceiling and in the face of mounting pressure from the Biden administration, Wall Street, and politically powerful interest groups. So yeah, Wall Street here, they're actually on the Democrats' side on this one because, they like to see a functioning economy. The stock market, which, shout out to Breaking Points, is actually a graph of rich people's feelings. And seeing that, seeing 6 million jobs lost, seeing just mass chaos in the economy is not going to be good for even rich people's feelings, let alone everyday working people. Biden's Council of Economic Advisors issued a report Wednesday morning laying out the grim consequences of a default and declaring if Congress fails to act, it could take decades for the United States to fully recover. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin sounded the alarm with a statement warning that a debt ceiling breach would seriously harm our service members and their families by calling into question whether our troops, depending on staff, and defense contractors would be paid. And in a letter to lawmakers circulated by the White House, the AARP, the powerful lobbying group for seniors, cautioned that millions of older Americans could go without Social Security or Medicare benefits if the cap were not raised. So McConnell, just absolutely politically kind of disastrous deal. The Democrats, by the way, were also preparing, which is very, very interesting. It is also, McConnell's proposal also raised a diffuse criticism that his party was acting recklessly by blocking the Democrats from even taking up a bill to raise the debt ceiling until December 2022, because they're, again, already doing they've already done the process of reconciliation for their big social care bill. They can't do that until December 22, which is insane, because they can only do a certain amount of reconciliation bills a year. It'll also put off for the time being the prospect that the Democrats might change the filibuster rules to allow themselves to go around the Republicans and raise the debt unilaterally. It was that possibility, some GOP senators said on Wednesday, that motivated McConnell to seek a deal. The offer also confronted Democrats with the prospect of the politically uncomfortable vote that some of them had wanted to avoid. McConnell demanded they specify a dollar amount by which they would raise a debt cap, not simply suspend it until a certain date, potentially opening politically vulnerable Democrats to campaign ads attacking them for endorsing large amounts of spending, which, by the way, I don't think would be a politically effective strategy at all. And, the research does show that, people care a lot about avoiding massive economic calamity. They care about that a lot more than just, some number, very, very arbitrary number about our debts, which we need to pay anyway. That is definitely kind of a reality check for them, and interesting to see. Interesting story to follow in the future. All right, back in a minute.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our segment to tell you all about what's going on here on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network this summer. We do, as I'm sure you know, have a great lineup available for you. We, of course, start with our flagship show, Newsflash, all new Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, uncultured, irregularly, back every Saturday with live music and sports analysis. with my co-host of the summer, Bennett Laxton. Hidden History will be brand new every Thursday on a bit of a hiatus, but will return shortly. It's the summer of podcasting. It's the summer of sounds. All you got to do is just keep listening wherever you get your podcasts, always here on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going now to our next story in Common Dreams. It's to do with Bernie Sanders and Joe Manchin getting into a bit of a feud. So it's from Jessica Corbett. Senate Budget Committee Chair Bernie Sanders responded forcefully on Wednesday to remarks from Joe Manchin, one of the two senators holding up the Build Back Better budget reconciliation package containing key parts of President Joe Biden's agenda. So Manchin has proposed a $1.5 trillion investment over a decade versus the $3.5 trillion favored by the vast majority of Democrats, and including the president. He said on Wednesday that I don't believe we should turn our society into an entitlement society. Again, this is a guy who has, as I said in the intro, been living off of government subsidies, whether it be for his coal, whether it be, his daughter getting, screwing people out of insulin that they need. He has been pretty much had the easy way through life, felt entitled to, the Senate seat and, the votes of West Virginians for an incredibly long time. Talk about someone who's truly entitled. I think you could do no better than Joe Manchin. Of course, the entitled one is the one turning around and calling millions and millions of Americans who have had a tough time during this pandemic, of all things, entitled. Just absolutely incredible stuff. Again, from his yacht, literally from his yacht to people on kayaks. Couldn't get any more clear. Incredible. So he said, I think we should be a compassionate, rewarding society. Compassion means taking care of those who can't take care of themselves whenever they're young, whenever they've had some type of challenge in life, whether it be physical or mental. Those are responsibilities that we have, and we can meet those responsibilities. This is Joe Manchin. While Manchin expressed some support for the packages, for some of the policies being negotiated, including reforms targeting the beneficiaries of the GOP's 2017 tax cuts and allowing Medicare to negotiate for lower drug prices, which, by the way, Kristen Sinema still does not support, to the best of my knowledge. Pretty crazy stuff there. During his afternoon press conference, Sanders highlighted that the proposed $3.5 trillion investment is backed by not only the American public, but Biden, but also the most Democratic caucus members in the House and all but two, Manchin Sinema, in the Senate. He also noted who is vigorously opposed to the bill, the pharmaceutical, health insurance, and fossil fuel industries, as well as the tax-avoidant billionaire class. And as well, he had said, it is really noteworthy that Senator Bernie Sanders, of all people, during the primaries, I think you could tell by the relationship, you could have guessed that actually, now that I think about it, hate to bring back some of those grievances from the campaign, but yes, based on the relationship they had, it's not incredibly shocking to see that Bernie would have advocated for Biden's agenda, and it's also good to see that Bernie has had I think a significant role, at least to some degree, more significant than we've had, under pretty much any other Democrat. I definitely think Pete wouldn't be taking his calls like this if he'd won, or Kamala or whatever, but her supporters would lose it if they did. There's some sort of mass. You see just a bunch of I just picture people in K-hives. People just going around with, their heads are little bees. So, just a bunch of people, jumping off a bridge, if Bernie and Biden did some sort of deal together. But, yeah, it is true. And it's something that totally makes years of hysterical, ludicrous, only politically motivated Democratic smearing of Bernie Sanders as not a team player, not a Democrat. Looks so ridiculous. He is advocating so much harder for than all these people for Biden's agenda, and all these people who have said time and time again that Bernie isn't a Democrat, in order to support people who are really true Democrats, like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. Unity is such a fraud to these people. It means nothing to them, and the people who trust them on it are really the ones who are going to get screwed in the end. Pony mentions entitlement society comment. Sanders launched into a series of questions for the West Virginian, beginning with, does that mean we end the $300 direct payments for working class parents, which would cut child poverty in half? Is protecting working families and cutting child poverty an entitlement? At a time when millions of seniors have the teeth in their mouths that are rotting, when they can't afford have hearing aids in order to communicate with their grandchildren, when they can't afford a pair of glasses to read the newspaper? Does Senator Manchin really believe that seniors are not entitled to digest their food and that they're not entitled to eat and see properly? Is that really too much to ask? Should that be not a guaranteed right on the richest country on earth? Bringing up good points here. And, Bernie, AOC coming up with the tag team take. So, yeah, it's very good to see. But putting the pressure on, doing this, and really something that people should realize. And, again, nobody now, I think it really gets to say, with any sort of credibility, and any sort there is just no justification. Not that they have any credibility in the first place, and not that they're going to stop saying it because I said it. I said they should, but these people who are going on and on and on about Bernie Sanders not a Democrat, they can just shove it at this point till there's no tomorrow. It doesn't even really matter because he's not going to run again, but the people making that case, don't take them seriously on it. If they said that at any point, don't take them seriously on it. Hold them accountable, know where they stand, and adjust your viewing and reading and consumption habits accordingly. All right. We're now going to talk about Stephen Donzinger and Jacobin. Last week, Chevron finally secured judicial retaliation against Stephen Donzinger, the human rights lawyer who helped secure a historic $9.5 billion judgment against the company 10 years ago over their pollution of the Amazon rainforest in Ecuador. After an unprecedented 787 days in pretrial home detention, Donziger was sentenced last Friday to a maximum of 6 months in prison for contempt of court by Loretta Preska, judge for the Southern District of New York, who has said that the only proverbial 2x4 between the eyes. Wow. Who said that only the proverbial 2x4 between the eyes will instill in him any respect for the law. Loretta Preska talking there of Stephen Donziger, wanting him to get a nice little 2x4 to the eyes. That's the wonderful New York judicial system that does really the American judicial system that makes everybody so proud. So Preska's conduct has been it's been awful, frankly. It's been, talk about lack of respect for the law. Projection, again, so rampant with these people. The idea that anybody could have less respect for the law than Chevron and their personal judge, Loretta Preska, is laughable. And also about the good thing about this podcast is that nobody listens to it, so no one's going to sue me. Sorry. But anyway, Preska, please don't sue me. Please don't lock me up in my house and call me some sort of terrorist for things I said about you, Loretta. Thank you. I love you and Chevron. Dump me, bathe me in oil, whatever you want to do. So Preska's conduct obviously has been a focal point of the trial ever since she was, against local rules, handpicked to oversee the case by Judge Louis A. Kaplan, the Chevron-invested former tobacco industry lawyer who had blocked the judgment against the company and launched a contempt case. Preska denied Donzinger's request for a jury trial, barred Zoom access for the trial to the public, and consistently ruled against Donzinger's legal team. She refused to hear from Donzinger's lawyers about why he had drawn the contempt charge by not turning over his laptop and phone, namely to protect attorney-client privilege. I mean, duh. You ask for a lawyer's phone. You can ask for the suspect's phone. You can ask for not the suspect, the person being the person the lawyer is representing, the client. You don't ask for the lawyer's phone. That's not how it works. Again, the U.S. does not have respect for the rule of law. They just do not. That is not how these are people who literally send masked men to break into Julian Assange's lawyer's office. This is a joke. It's a joke. Critics pointed to Preska's seat on the advisory board of the New York chapter of the Federalist Society, the right-wing judicial lobby of which Chevron is a donor. But even before then, Preska's history of business ties and pro-corporate rulings made her a deal pick to carry out the company's reprisal on Kaplan's behalf. And I'm sure Chevron, it's a big company, I'm sure some sort of talk was had beforehand. The Donziger case is not the first time these connections created a conflict of interest for the judge. Back in 1995, she'd been approved for the court. 3 years after she'd been approved for the court, Preska presided over a copyright case involving the Twin Cities-based West Publishing Company, despite her and her husband's connections to the firm. Preska's husband Thomas Cavalier is a 40-year veteran and a partner at Cahill, Gordon, and Reindl, a top corporate law firm that specializes in the world of finance. It was only when pressed by one of the litigants, forcing her to admit relationships with two West employees, including a lawyer who was key to the case, that she recused herself. 17 years later, Prescott presided over the case of hacktivist Jeremy Hammond, who is under trial for hacking into various law enforcement agencies and private security firms, including Strategic Forecasting Limited, or Stratfor, which counted the Pentagon and Department of Homeland Security among its clients. As Hacking Group Anonymous pointed out, and noted by almost no news outlets besides the likes of RT, Rolling Stone, or journalists like Chris Hedges, Prescott's husband was one of Stratfor's customers whose data had been hacked and would have been eligible for a payout from the multi-million-dollar class action lawsuit against the company that resulted. Stratfor had also spent on Occupy Wall Street movement in direct opposition to Prescott's husband's client base, and more than 20 of his firm's clients had been caught up in the hack, including Merrill Lynch. Despite this conflict of interest, and despite telling senators at her confirmation hearings decades before that, through my husband, I might have thought to have an indirect financial interest in the profits of the law firm Cahill, Gordon, and Reindl, Prescott refused to recuse herself from the case because I guess she got more comfortable in the role. Doing so, she said, would encourage supporters of this defendant or other defendants to allege unsubstantiated conflict of interest against any of my brothers and sisters of the court until no judge remained qualified to hear this case. Yeah, so it's kind of insane that judges can just, do that. There's not some other body deciding to recuse the judge, like kick the judge out. But yeah, it's very iffy, shall we say? But yeah, you know what? It's a bad situation, folks. Let's hope Stephen Donzinger gets out of jail soon. We're gonna have to follow this case. So, yeah, it's definitely, the judge is bad. The whole system incredibly corrupt here. Really scary situation. But that is just the reality.
Buckingham Palace has announced the death of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh.
It's news flash.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving on to talking about an opinion piece that I found in the New York Times today. Like doing a little bit of reading articles. So this is by Annalise Griffin, an independent journalist who writes and edits culture, lifestyle, and health stories. Stop bashing other parents for their vaccine choices in front of your kids. So let's take a look at this. I'm kind of like a little bit back and forth on vaccine politics. Mostly I do think, I'm not. Like, what am I talking about? You should get a vaccine. Like, come on. But, am I talking about, demonizing people who don't get a vaccine at all costs if you're the government? I don't think that's the best idea generally, but, this I haven't even read the article. So we're going in cold here. This is a reaction to an article I literally just picked based on the headline that I think would be good. If you've dipped even a toe into the kiddie pool of modern parenting politics, then you're probably aware that it's actually a Shark Tank. Confess your love for the convenience of school lunches and expect a pitying smile. Yeah, that in certain cultures I can definitely imagine. A far more withering gaze will meet any mention of a Happy Meal or decision to stop breastfeeding. I'd actually be interested to talk to my mom about this and see what she agrees with some of how cutthroat these parents are. Making choices for our children often feels like a high-stakes game show in which there's only one right answer and everyone else is shouting their version of it at you. I have 2 children in elementary school, and I think it probably gets worse every year, honestly. I would not be surprised, especially if you're in a certain white liberal upper class culture. Oh, I can see it. So this lady has 2 children in elementary school, and I fully expect a frenzy of playground whispers and social media recriminations over who is and who isn't going to vaccinate their kids once the COVID-19 vaccine for children aged 5 to 11 becomes available. Public health officials have said that this could happen as early as this fall. In my southern Vermont community, the whispers has already started. Many parents, even those who are vaccinated, are themselves are spooked by the vaccines when it comes to their children. September Gallup poll taken just before the Pfizer and BioNTech announced that they would seek emergency authorization to administer the vaccine to children. Younger children found that 45% of parents would not be willing to get their child under 12 vaccinated, including 18% of parents who were vaccinated. There's an opportunity here to show our children that anxiety and anger don't have to go hand in hand, and perhaps to more productively process our own worries, even if there are no children watching. More important, it's a chance to model empathy. No matter how certain you are for the efficacy and safety of vaccines, putting a new vaccine in your child's arm is a hard decision. As adults, we can show that children that life is full of hard decisions and demonstrate how we have learned to approach them. We can teach them it's our responsibility to care for others, even when it costs us something. We can blah, blah, blah. We can show them how we deal with anxiety, all that. Children have already been watching us. That's what, nothing of this seems to be. So now it kind of just goes, they're talking about a psychologist, Michelle Borba, talking about, kids learn values from their parents, saying, like, my parents tell me to be calm even when they're not, so, practice what you preach, pretty much. So in her most recent research, Borba interviewed a group of teenagers in Illinois who told her that they coped with the pandemic-related stress and anxiety by filling out by making gift bags filled with cookies and handwritten notes for students they were worried about during remote schooling and lockdown. The phone calls of appreciation, some tearful, made them feel better and more connected. Empathy nurtures crucial abilities to handle stress. That's nice. But how does this relate to vaccinations? So, as for the risk of teaching our children that everything is hopeless and the people we don't agree with are undeserving of our empathy, that seems like a high risk, as opposed to, COVID for kids or getting the vaccine. That's, that's honestly, this is a good way to end the show. I'm glad about this. Good time for empathy, not judging people, not freaking out. That is a good way to end the show. Folks, be empathetic for your fellow neighbor, even if you may not agree with them. Try and understand them. But in all means, if you think they're stupid, though, that's fine, too. Thanks for watching or listening. Actually, just listening. We'll be back on Friday.